Hey folks, Mark here from Sea Wild Earth, and today we're going to be talking about mastering and diffusing light for macro photography. It's been a quest that's taken me a number of years, but this week I arrived and I'm so stoked. So please sit back, take a pew, relax, and let's get into it. Now, the journey awaiting the macro photographer takes them on a roller coaster ride of emotions, from the highs of feeling a sense of elation and accomplishment and positivity when a shot or sequence is nailed, all the way over, on the other hand, to the lows when things just feel like they're not jiving, when that sense of despondency comes in because you just can't figure out what's going wrong. But that can be down to a number of different factors, including those things that you cannot control, ambient conditions, such as wind or rain. Now, in all aspects of photography, that old adage of Rome not being built in a day stands true. Mastering any photographic genre often requires a massive investment of time, effort, stress, not to mention money, in order to get it right. Now, as many of you know, I've been an avid photographer, macro photographer and videographer for a number of years. Many of the films that you've seen on this channel, and you can scroll through them if you wish, are about macro photography and the trials and tribulations that I've experienced on my personal path to seeking how to best accomplish the results that I currently get. I've also won international film festivals for films that have predominantly been about macro subjects, especially some films that I shot way back when I was working as an underwater cameraman. So, yep, I am very much a macro nut, as it were. I think it's probably one of the best and most pleasing and satisfying photographic genres that there is. Now, with all of this, the underlying factor that relates to your success as a macro photographer depends on your ability to master lighting. Now, let's clarify things here. I'm talking about macro photography when you're using flash, as opposed to the completely different beast that is macro photography using ambient lighting, which takes a whole bunch of different considerations and even equipment into consideration. Now, I've often said that with photography, the tools that are a camera, lens and a flash system are only the beginning point. They're only the starting point. These elements form the very basis of a foundation for your success or failure within the realm of flash photography, and particularly flash macro photography. Once you have these essential items, you still have to find ways for them to work specific to your needs, because every photographer is different. Now, in flash photography, the biggest obstacle is the diffusion of light. Okay, now what do I mean by the diffusion of light? Now, in basic terms, the word diffusion is just that. It relates to the diffusion or the softening of light so that it doesn't create hotspots of intensity and thus creating overexposed elements within your imagery. Now, you'll also note that I often shoot a lot of amphibians and reptiles, especially in the jungles of northern Okinawa. Now, these species, due to their behavioural traits, usually thrive within and around moist or wet conditions and environments. The genuine obstacle faced by any photographer in that sense is to try and ensure the softness of lighting on bodies that may be highly reflective due to them basically being wet. Now, the need for diffusion is far greater of an issue with macro photography given the proximity one tends to be to the subject. To record inspiring imagery, a macro photographer generally tends to be relatively close to their subject, generally within a few feet, even inches, and at times millimeters, all depending on the composition, the lens, and what it is that you're trying to accomplish as that macro photographer. Now, no doubt you've all seen portrait photographers, whether on a beach, on a photo shoot, or even or images from a studio, maybe from a channel that you watch here on YouTube. And what you'll find is they have these big, huge, what we call modifiers, flash modifiers, a lot of people call them softboxes, in order to create really nice soft lighting on the subjects that they're shooting, be that models or even product photography. And what you'll find is, or what happens with lighting is the bigger the area that it can cover, the softer that light's going to be, and even more so if it's initially reflected off of a surface and then bounces back out through that large surface area to create an even nice, even, soft light for the subject. Now this is basically the concept that we're trying to replicate with macro photography. That is the use of softboxes or something to soften the power of the strobes that we initially buy, because when they're bare bones and you get them from the manufacturers, they are going to be super hot. They're going to be super bright. You will be able to light up, and when you first start using them, you'll be thinking, yeah, this is awesome. But when you start drilling deeper into your images and looking at the quality, you'll soon be picking out areas where you think, that's just maybe a little bit too bright, or anything reflecting is just burnt out. You lose the data because it's just too bright on the subject. So then begins your quest, as mine did many years ago, to try and find the path to being able to come up with imagery that is well lit, and it doesn't have any distracting specular highlights in the composition. But why the use of dual flash heads? Well, there are more and more manufacturers these days coming up with macro flash heads that use actually two light heads in their unit. And the reason for that is because it allows the photographer to be able to move independently each one of those heads, and thus use different settings in order to create depth and shadow, and to be able to come back further from an object to create different looks, different kind of vibes with that lighting. So you're not always just having a strobe that is fitted that you can only move up or down, left or right. With the twin heads, you can adjust exactly where they are, the angles. If you want to switch your camera and go into a portrait mode, you can adjust those heads so that they light correctly however you want them, in whatever position. And then of course the power settings on each head, plus or minus, you can go from full power on one to low power on another in order to create, like I said, depth of image, using shadows, etc., etc. And it is by using one of those twin macro heads that I came up with a diffusion system that certainly works very, very well for me. And without sounding too blasé, I think if it works for me, then it's pretty much going to work for most folks. So without further ado, I want you to check this out.
It's alive!
Let me present to you, dun, 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 the Franken flash, or at least what I've always called the Franken flash. You will actually find a couple of videos on my channel. I just need to fix this arm here. You will find a couple of videos on my channel that relate to previous iterations of this project, but this is what I believe now to be the final iteration of the Franken flash. As you can see, it's not pretty, but I will definitely take functionality over aesthetics any day. And because this is just basically a prototype-ish kind of project, like I said, I would much happier to take this and know that it works over something that looks awesome but is a total bag of rubbish. Okay, now the base for this is, like I said, the Lauer EX800 twin macro flash. You've got two little macro heads here, but the heads are actually in these areas here, and they are feeding back and flashing into the back side of these tubs here. Now remember what I said about reflected light offering the best diffusion options. Well, that's exactly the first step of what's going on here, is that the light is going to the back of these elements here, which are then lined with a silver lining. Everything's got a silver lining, and then that then pushes through the diffusion screen, which is on the front here. Now this area here, the face area of each of these flash heads, is much bigger than the regular flash head of the module, which is only about a couple of inches by about an inch width, and so this greatly enhances that surface area of light, and going through the processes of diffusion that are within this product, it just gives it a very nice, soft, even light that emits from each one of these light heads. Now I do have a lighting system that I use, like a modeling light that I use for this system when I'm out in the field, and that is this little, almost like a little light head, LED light that comes on. Okay, and I'll just put that over the top of my subject, held in place by a small rig arm that screws into the cage on my EOS 5 DSR. Okay, so I use a very high megapixel count just to get that amazing detail in the photographs that I shoot, but that's pretty much it. I mean, that is the basic system that I'm now using for my macro photography. It has been probably about 7 or 8 iterations of this that have led me to this final product here. I don't think that I can better it. I don't think I can make it any better. So all I'm going to try and do now is just polish it a bit. But I went for a walk a few days ago, and these are a few of my latest images that I captured with this system. Okay, now this all brings me up to the second phase of this project. Like I said, it's been a few years coming to now. It may take a few more years. But what I'd like to do is to try and find the ways in order to bring this product to market so that other people can benefit from those years of knowledge of building this system, for macro photographers who also wish to, have their own pretty awesome diffusion system for their twin flash. What I'd like to try and do is to create it in a way so that it can be adapted for use with all of the different twin flash units, but that just then comes down to the form factor of how I go with that final design. Well, there you have it, folks. That was my path that I've taken in order to create what I feel to be the best solution for softening my lighting in macro photography. It's been an incredible path to have taken over the years, and one that has been made even more pleasing due to your involvement along the way. I can only say a heartfelt thanks for all the comments, subscriptions, and even emails that I've received from you guys and girls during that time. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. Feel free to tap that little red button just down there, and also slam the notifications bell so that you'll be updated as and when there's new content uploaded by yours truly here on SeaWild Earth. But until that time, the next project or the next video, please do stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and stay happy. And we'll hopefully hook up again sometime soon here on SeaWild Earth. Take care, folks. All the best.